Hey guys, welcome to EMSconnect On Shift. This is the podcast for EMS and fire providers who want to be better on the street and stronger off of it. This is real talk, real education, and real stories from people who've been there. Thanks for being on shift with us. All right, Zach. Hey, man. Thanks for joining me. Super excited for our conversation today, but would you like just to kind of give your introduction, who you are, what you do, what are your passions, stuff like that, and we'll get started with some questions and have a good time.
Yep. First and foremost, I just want to make it clear that anything I say here is my opinion alone. It doesn't reflect the department in any way, shape, or form that I work for. But I grew up in a small town in West Virginia. It's like the epitome of Mayberry. So if anyone ever watched the Andy Griffith show, that was my life growing up. Total of 2,900 people. There were 3 stoplights and 1 restaurant, and it was awesome. I was one of those kids that played sports year round and graduated, went off to school. After school, I got a job up in Pittsburgh where I was making a boatload of money. But I grew up in a family that was nothing but firefighters. And it was always the job that I would say that I would do if money wasn't the object. And, I'm a 4th generation fireman. And I just got to the point where I wasn't fulfilled doing the job I was doing up in Pittsburgh, and decided that, I'm just going to pull the trigger and I'm just going to go do something else, and something that I have a passion for. So I put in an application for 3 different departments, one of them being Pittsburgh, one being a local department where I grew up. And I basically just put it all in God's hands. I just prayed about it, and I just asked him to guide me and put me where he felt it'd be best for me to kind of fulfill whatever purpose he had for me at the time. And I got on all 3 of those lists, and the local department where I grew up was actually just the first one to call me. So I pulled the trigger on that, and kind of by blind faith, I actually bought a house about 15 days before they even offered me the job back home. So I was like, I really feel like this is going to work out. And I bought the house and closed on it. And the same day they said, "Hey, do you want to start in 2 weeks?" So it all came together, and I've been here on the paid side of things for about 2 years now, and it's the best decision I've made career-wise for sure.
Heck yeah, man. That's awesome. And then do you want to just talk about real quick, because I want you to get as much traffic to your site, at least on the social media side, as possible. That's how I encountered you, right? Is I think your clap resonates with me more than your face did. But what you're doing on social media, helping people out with the NREMT, you want to just talk about, and you can throw it in at the end again as well, but do you want to just talk about where people can interact with you, find you, learn from you, and kind of your passion for the social media side of this as well?
Yeah, social media, I'm only on TikTok as of right now. It's just at Zach Willhide, ZACWILLHIDE. And I felt called for years to go on there and start posting videos. And my whole mission with the whole thing was really, I just wanted to help people, whether it was motivation to be in shape, or motivation to eat better, or dive into their faith a little bit more. And I was posting on there for about 2 months straight, every single day posting videos. And I felt like, man, I'm not really getting many views. It was lucky if I got 100 views on a video. And then my wife, out of all things, she said, "I think you ought to post something about your job. Like, you love your job, but you're not posting anything about that. It's just faith and fitness." And so I decided to post a random video, and I said, here's 3 tips to pass the national registry, because I feel like, especially in the fire service, it's usually the medical side of things that is the big hump, or the big thing that everyone's worried about. And I said, well, I'm just going to come up with 3 tips that I think would help people. And every other video up to that point had gotten like 100 views, probably less than that. And then I posted one video for 3 tips to pass the national registry, and it got like 50,000. I was like, oh, well,
there it is.
People seem to be liking this. So I was like, I'll post another video that has to do with firefighting, or like Pro V tips. And then it just started steamrolling. And then for about 10 to 11 weeks, I've been getting about 1,000 new followers per week. So I'm almost at 12,000 followers, and the first video popped off was in December. And I just go over basically things to do to pass the national registry. I break down topics that are confusing to people. I talk about tips for probationary firefighters so that they can build a good reputation and build a good experience, especially when they first start the job. Just to talk about fitness. And overall, I just feel blessed to be able to help people that want to help people. And that's where I am now. And now it's just to the point where people are asking me questions, and I'm breaking down these topics on TikTok and just trying to break it down to the simplest way to understand things and then easy to apply. And so far it's been really well received, and I just feel super blessed.
Dude, that's awesome. That's so good. I mean, we've kind of similar paths, right? And it's kind of funny that they both just intersected through that. So, dude, I'm stoked to see the growth that you're offering, the people that you're helping, whether it's on the, probationary tip side, NREMT side, faith-based side, fitness, it doesn't matter, man. I think your impact is huge. So the cool thing is you and I kind of been interacting just back and forth for, I think, just little over a week. I mean, obviously, we talked on the phone and I think got to know each other. So I'm stoked to kind of dive into some of these questions, and we're going to go into stuff all the way from fire service standards, going to talk a lot about faith, which I'm super excited for. You're like the first faith-based person that I've had on the podcast. I had a buddy of mine that was a pastor that more or less was talking about dealing with patients and patients' family in those like rough times, kind of like the death notification side of things. But I'm super stoked to kind of jump into this with you. But let's dive a little bit deeper. I want to hear a little bit more about your background and kind of your journey, and then we'll get into some of those questions. So you did, I think you and I talked, you did 5 years as a volunteer, and now you've been 2 years on the career side. How did your perspective of the job change when you made that transition from volunteer to career?
Yeah. So, like I was saying earlier, a lot of men in my family were firefighters on both sides, my mom and my dad. And most of them were doing things on the volunteer side, except for my grandfather, who was a firefighter in the Air Force before he got out. And I think that growing up in that environment, it was so awesome because I got to be around a firehouse in my eyes and be around kind of a culture. But when I stepped into and I'm only speaking from my perspective here, I think that the change and shift of mindset was, I always grew up thinking the firehouse was a place that you went on Thursday nights to maybe go over some trucks, maybe touch a topic, but then it was like hanging out and shooting the breeze and then running calls throughout the week. It totally shifted when I went to the career side of things, and it was my first day in the station, and a guy who's one of my best friends now, he was a lieutenant at the time, now he's a captain. I worked under him, and my first day in the station, I was 20 minutes into a shift, and he pulled me outside. It was just him and myself in the bay. He said, some of the best firefighters I know were volunteers, and you were a volunteer, and that's awesome. He said, we're no longer playing the volunteer game. We are performing a professional game. And that's what the civilians that we are entrusted to protect or help, they expect a professional level service. So if your approach isn't from a professional standpoint, this job isn't for you. And it totally shifted my perspective in the sense of, we're not playing around here. And not that the volunteer side of the service is that, but the volunteer side, if you're lucky and you're a really disciplined volunteer department, you're meeting once a week and you maybe do hard training for 2 hours once a week. If you're really disciplined, from my experience. But on the professional side of things, you're doing things, multiple times a week, and you could be trained for 3 to 4 hours a shift. So the level of proficiency that you get access to is just offered more often. So you get to raise your level of performance just because you have more opportunities. So I think changing the mindset of, you get to do this once a week, and it's kind of more social, and you want to help people because you're there and you love it, to the sense of, hey, this isn't a game, this isn't a hobby, and this isn't for fun. Like, you signed up to do a job and you need to perform at a professional level. So those were the two differentiating approaches, I think, that taught me at first.
Heck yeah, man. Well, you managed to I think all my first 4 questions all were stemming off of that. So you literally just went through that whole thing, right? Because I wanted to know, was there a pivotal moment that you realized that this, was shaped your profession, and you realized this wasn't just a job, it was much deeper than that. And I think giving credit to your captain or lieutenant at the time, obviously, but pulling you aside and being like, hey man, if you're not going to take this serious, then this isn't for you. So I think we just jumped right in. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, it wasn't anything that I had done. I just want to lay the line. He wasn't.
You want to clear the air there? Yeah, I wasn't in trouble yet.
It was just the first day. And one thing I love about, and he's such a great leader in multiple facets, but he's just really big on setting the expectation. Like, hey, this is day one. This is what I expect of you. And then moving forward, if you don't meet that expectation, it's going to come with some sort of a conversation. But that's something I love about him, and I think it's something that can be missing in the fire service also. But that was one of the best things that I think he could have done for me, is just shift my mindset to, we're here to be professionals, and that's what this job requires if you want to be good at it.
Yeah. And I think that's a common thing when you, especially, I did the same thing, right? I transferred from the volunteer side to the paid side. And I think without that conversation, you think it's just going to be just like being a volunteer. And I think both of us are using that term with no ill intent, with no negative connotation. Like, we're not talking down upon volunteers, but there definitely is a expectation and standard difference between those two titles. And I love that, I had kind of a similar experience, but love that you had that conversation, or he had that conversation with you of, hey, just letting you know, like, this is a fresh start. This is something new, and the bar has been raised. So I think that's huge. Let's dive a little bit deep. I want to hear, you and I connected like on a faith-based level, and I'd love to hear more about that. So you're pretty passionate and pretty vocal, which I respect about your faith. So how did that begin to influence kind of your approach to the job itself? Like, how do you bridge that gap between, or, bring those two passions together, the faith side and now your job as a professional firefighter?
I think it comes in a couple of different ways. I think that, in a job like this, it's inevitable you're going to see hard stuff, and it's going to be pretty difficult at times. And I think that my faith, first and foremost, I think the foundation of my faith is to recognize that I'm not the one in control, and I'm not the one who has already written the result or written the story of my life or other people's lives.
Dude, that's good.
That's not what I'm there for. And my job is to basically play the part that I'm called to play. And it's not my job to worry about the results. So I think that the approach on the faith side of things makes it a little bit easier for me, because I know that I'm going to see hard things, but the results that come to be, it's not really up to me to have an opinion on those results. My job is to be in that scenario and render the best care that I possibly can for those patients, and then kind of let God take the rest of it. And that might seem a little jaded or a little confusing, I guess, to some folks who may not, be too much into their faith, but that's my approach to it. And I think it takes a little bit of pressure off of me, to the point of, that person isn't living, or is living even, because of something that I did. My job is just to play a small part in that process and do the best thing I can in the moment. And then the rest is up to someone who knows way more than I ever will. And that's God. Yeah,
that's huge, man. And I think, I know you haven't really ventured into the TikTok live world yet. I know we're working on, we're going to kick you right into that deep end here very soon. But that's probably one of the most common questions I get right on those lives is, how do you handle the negative things and the sadness and despair and death that we do see in our jobs? So I do have a couple of like personal questions, if you don't mind, of kind of how do you handle it, right? Because I have my idea and what I always tell people. But so what specifically, I know you mentioned, right? You have the mindset that this isn't in your hands, that the ending is already written, but how does your faith help you process what we can be exposed to on a regular basis, or in some cases a not regular basis, which almost makes it harder to deal with? So how do you personally process what we witness in this job?
I think there's two things. One is having a good core group of dudes that you run with on the job who understand exactly what you saw or what you did in the moment, and being able to bounce ideas off that. I'm huge on debriefs and going over things, especially after a hard call, because if there's any opportunity to improve, that's the way to do it. And then I also think something that I don't think gets enough recognition is really your spouse or your family. I'm lucky that there's men in my family who are firemen, but I am not shy to say my wife is my go-to for a lot of those things. And she is in the health profession, but she is such a good listener. And I have no secrets with my wife. I have no wall that I build up between her and me. There have been plenty of times where I've come home from a hard shift or a hard call, and she asks me how things go, and I say, hey, we had a hard call, and I lay it all out there for her. And I think people there who are a foundation of support in both settings is super key. You have the support system at home, but then you have the support system at work. It really lays a foundation for you to be in a good spot and perform in both atmospheres or both environments. And if you don't have someone there who understands where you are at home and only at work, I think that it opens up opportunity for things to maybe snowball or get worse, especially in the home life side of things. So I think that's having two support systems is huge.
That's funny because I mean I'm the same way. I tell people on TikTok all the time, like it's my support system. Similar, right? My wife is an EMT as well, and so that's what I always tell people on the TikTok is, you know, I can talk to her about if I feel like I didn't make the right calculation of medication, I can run that by her. If I feel like I didn't do a procedure correctly, I can run that by her. Or if it's something with faith, or if it's something with the tragedy we saw, she can understand every facet of that. And I feel like you kind of the same perspective as me. And it's funny, I can't remember, it was a podcast I listened to or something, and someone said just what you and I are both saying, which is they don't, you know, you hear people say, oh, don't bring that home to your spouse. It's like, well, we're under the belief that God has put those spouses in our lives for a reason. And that's the reason, is because they're there to support us and help us and stuff. So I think that's awesome. Like I said, the more you and I talk, it's funny that we have similar perspectives. So, what does faith look like for you on shift? Like, do you privately reflect on your faith? Do you pray before shift? How do you wrap up each one of your shifts? Like, how do you dive a little bit deeper into just how do you bring those two together?
Yeah, I think one thing that really helps, you know, I'm like a little kid in the sense of I say my prayers every night before I go to sleep. So and I think naturally I'm very self-critical, and I think also, you know, having a good relationship with my faith, you know, the Holy Spirit is constantly convicting me. So I think that I have a sense of reflection at the end of every day, you know, whether I, you know, one where I stand. Not that I'm in your face about it, but if anyone were to ever ask a question, I'm definitely not going to shy away and
Yeah, absolutely.
tell you my beliefs. So recently it's been pretty cool, actually. I remember I changed stations in July, and about a month or two in, every morning I do a devotional, and some people would notice that. And then it got to the point where someone was asking me like, hey man, you know, you pray before your meals. Like sometimes I would just pray to myself privately and say grace. And someone said, hey man, you should start saying grace for lunch and dinner. I was like, oh yeah, I'd be happy to do that, man. So now it's gotten to that point. And then there's guys on the department that I work with who I ask questions to that are very much into their faith and trying to understand their perspective over certain things. So I think it's kind of grown, especially over the last 7 or 8 months. But I think it really comes to just trying to lead by example and trying to not be shy, but not be in your face, and just kind of live the life that we're called to live, and being bold, but without being too, I don't know if the word be abrasive or kind of in your face about it.
Yeah, I think you sum that up perfect, right? It's like you're not in your face, but if you're asked, then you open that door, I'm going to be honest and tell you. So I think that's huge. So for some first responders listening that maybe don't have the same identity or the same, you know, religious principles that you and I both seem to share, what principles about your faith do you think transfer over on like a universal level?
First and foremost, I think being professional in the sense of being kind and being hardworking is what you signed up to do. And your job is not to control the result. Your job is to render the care that is asked of you and to help that person in need. But whether you like it or not, we don't control the results. So I think whether you are a faith-based person or not, by taking that approach and just saying, hey, that you're going to perform at a high level in the moment when you're called to, and that's all you can do in the moment, I think it's going to take some pressure off of you and hopefully give you an opportunity to grow and then help the people who need it the most. But I think that that's pretty universal, at least in my opinion. That doesn't come from faith. I think that comes from, you can use that in any way, shape, or form.
Absolutely, man. I love that. So again, kind of diving a little bit deeper into the personal, this is just you personally. How do you reset after one of those bad calls or challenging calls? I know you mentioned doing a devotional, at the start of your off going. You mentioned, finding confidence in your wife and things like that. But what else? I mean, I know you're a fitness guy. So like, is that your go-to of just, man, I got to get rid of some of this adrenaline and dopamine and that kind of stuff? Is that what you do? Or what does it look like for you of if right now you came home from a bad call or a challenging shift? How do you reset everything to go back, in the next shift?
Yeah, fitness is huge for me. I think that the exhausting the body kind of puts the mind at peace. And then also, like I said earlier, I'm huge on debriefs. So even if someone isn't there, that captain I was just talking about earlier, and then one of my other best friends, there's about 3 of us that are pretty tight. And I really like going to them and saying, hey, this was a scenario. This is what I did in the moment. Was that right? What are your thoughts? Is there anything that you would have done differently? And the reason I do that is because I want all the information that I did to be fresh, so I don't forget anything that happened in that scenario, but then also use the opportunity to grow and maybe shift my perspective to a different take on it or a different approach that happened in that call. And then after that, I really just like to take it easy and just, process things with time and prayer and conversations. Those are the 3 things that I think really get me back to zero and help me to navigate those and then just show up back on shift and ready to rock.
Heck yeah, man. I love that. Have you ever caught yourself like slipping, whether that's like mentally, emotionally, spiritually, with your fitness, or I don't know if you're like me, there's one of those things like you're at shift and there's a whole, box full of donuts and you're like, well, I'll just have half a donut. Why we cut donuts in half, I have no idea. Cause for an absolute fact, you're going to eat the whole darn donut. So I don't know why I always eat half and then walk by 20 minutes later and eat the other half. But how do you, on any of those levels, how do you recalibrate, refocus, recenter yourself to kind of get back on track tomorrow or whatever the case might be?
Yeah, I think it's funny. So I actually catch a lot of flack with the guys I work with because, you probably know, like in the firehouse, we're eating good. There's some pretty good feasts and we got some pretty good cooks on shift. And there's a lot of times where guys will make like this feast and then a dessert. And I catch a lot of crap from dudes that like, dude, you're not having dessert. Like, no, I don't
trust myself. That's why I'm not having dessert.
So I try not to dive too much into the sweets too much. But, I think at the end of the day, recognizing in just about any facet when it comes to resetting, if you miss, 2 or 3 days of working out in a week, I think that it's easy to think like, well, the whole week is shot. That's easy to get into, but I also try to change the perspective of I'm not playing a finite game here. I'm playing an infinite game. Like I'm trying to work out and be in shape consistently for the next 25, 30, 40 years. So is me missing 2 to 3 days in a row, is that going to affect the next 40 years? If it does, then that's a pretty poor mindset.
Right.
So I think shifting the fact of like, hey, I missed 3 days, but what's the next best thing I can do? Show up tomorrow and get back on track. I think recognizing, not letting things snowball is the key to staying on the track long term and having somewhat of a consistent path. Because if you get to the point where your perspective is so small that the idea that you have of perfection is just shattered after 2 or 3 days, it's unsustainable and it's never going to evolve and change and be the path that you need to be on long term.
Long nights, long shifts, feel the burnout creeping in. I'm patching up the chaos, but I want to learn again. Scrolling through the noise, then I see a spark ignite. EMSconnect, yeah, it hits me like a spotlight. Classy stack, higher than the clouds.
All right, quick timeout. Don't touch the dial. This episode is brought to you by EMSconnect because EMS education shouldn't end when the tones drop. When you join EMSconnect, you get access to real-world education, engaging courses, live discussions, and a community built by EMS providers for EMS providers. No fluff, no check-the-box training, just practical knowledge you can actually use on shift for a price that's not going to break your wallet. And if you're not already following EMSconnect on social media, what the hell are you doing? Come connect with us on all social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, X, and yes, even TikTok. We go live on TikTok multiple times a week talking about EMS, medicine, fire, and just connecting with providers and bystanders from all over the world. Search EMSconnect on all those social media platforms. Want the conversations that happen after the shift? Join the Discord community, Medics After Dark, where the tones are down, the coffee is strong, and the conversations are real. This group is hundreds of people strong and has great channels for everything EMS. We're talking education, mentoring, friendship, and even real peer-to-peer support. Come join the virtual EMS break room without borders. The link to join is in our show notes. Quick shout out to the Fractured Saints for the music you're hearing in the background. We appreciate the support. Please make sure to check them out on Spotify. Their link is also in the show notes. And hey, if you're enjoying the podcast, do us a solid, rate, review, and share EMSconnect on Shift. It helps us support EMS education everywhere and keeps this content coming. All right, back to the episode.
This is the training built for a new breed. EMSconnect, give me everything I need.
All right. I feel like our faith, our walk, that was the easy stuff. Now we're going to kind of change gears to like standards and holding that high standard of this profession. I feel like this is the deeper stuff, right? So
Yes.
when you and I talked on the phone, we talked about a high standard. I think I bring up the analogy varsity versus junior varsity. I think you brought up the difference between like the show and the minors. So I think it's all different words, same analogy, right? But you've talked a lot about high standards. So what does that mean to you? You personally, not your department, not, where you like, just you personally as Zach. When I say maintain a high standard, what does that look like?
A B average. I think having a B average in all facets is the key to being well-rounded and performing at a pro level. I think that the people that dive into one topic and they say, hey, I'm an A plus in X, Y, and Z, and they're like a D plus or a C minus and all these other ones. I think that isn't what you want. I think that no one needs to be perfect in every facet, but I think maintaining a high average and being proficient in every single aspect that we can be is going to render a lot better care, and it's going to render a lot better performance long term. And if we can get a culture to basically buy into that, where, hey, we're not looking for perfection, we're looking for a really high average, we're looking for really, really good performers. I think that that's the key. Just try not to don't be stagnant in one area. Try to be as well-rounded as possible.
That's so good. I just had this conversation this morning with a new guy on my, he's within his year, right? And I'm only bringing this story up because I know for an absolute fact, I told him I was going to interview you today, that this podcast was going to be up, and I know he's going to listen to this, and I know he's going to know I'm talking about him. But he loves search. His passion is search. And I said, dude, I love your passion for search, but don't let that ever overcome that you make a mistake on pulling a hydrant or deploying a hose line or forcing a door. Like, you can have a passion for one thing, right? But don't forget that the expectation, depending on and it goes for the medicine side, you can't be awesome at IVs, but suck at intubation and suck at calculating drugs and suck at doing CPR. Like, the public is expecting us to be, masters of all. So don't isolate that. So I love that you said that. Maybe he'll listen more now that you said it and not just me. So, and that wasn't even pre-planned. So I appreciate that. So why do you think, because you even said we as a whole need to raise the standards up, why do you think, and again, this is your personal opinion, those standards seem to slide down in fire and EMS? And I think we would agree it seems to kind of be on that downward trend, right? Where I don't know, I always feel like that's kind of the habit is, well, if we hold a standard this high, then not everyone is able to achieve it. So we need to lower that standard. So why do you think that is?
I think that there's a couple of reasons. I think that for a while there, especially, 20 years ago, I spoke to guys that have been on the department for a really long time that I work for. It used to be, there would be 8 or 10 slots and there'd be like 300 guys applying for it. That is not the case anymore.
No.
Like the last test, like the test that I took, I think there were 40 people that tried to just took the written test, and it was competing for 3 or 4 spots at the time. But I think that because there's not as many people competing, first and foremost, having a small pool to choose from at the very get-go, it's not going to render too many people that are going to be the top candidates anyways. Because if we had 400 people applying for 8 slots, like there's a good shot we're going to have 8 studs at the end of this. But now if there's 40 people competing for 8 slots, are we really going to have that big of high performers, at least right off the get-go? Maybe not. And I also think that the standards, I think they need to be higher. And I don't mean this the way it sounds, like not everyone's meant to do this job. And I think that by lowering the standard to the point of, anyone could come in and anyone could get a job. If it was your family or your wife or your dad, whoever it might be, laying on the floor and they're unconscious, unresponsive, and some dude walks in who, slipped through the cracks because of low standards and he doesn't really know what he's doing. That dude lets my family member or someone important to me die because the standards were low and just because we need to fill a slot, I'm going to have an issue. And I think that there's a little bit of pressure too, hey, if we raise the standard, there's going to be a lot of pressure on guys that are already in the job. It's going to make it hard for people to get those jobs. Like I sure as hell hope so. I want someone that wants that pressure, and I want someone
sounds like something I want.
Yeah, it sounds like something that you're called to perform in one of the highest stress environments that we can willingly take on. And now you want someone who doesn't have that high of a standard, or didn't have to overcome very many obstacles, or didn't have to work very hard to get that responsibility. I don't think that warrants very good results, and it definitely doesn't warrant very good, or doesn't result in very good culture or a very good perspective, especially from the public.
Yeah, heck yeah, dude, I love that. So how do you, you've talked about it a little bit, right? How do you personally guard against complacency? So what drives you every day to maintain that high standard, to go out and train, to work out on shift? And, so like, what is your personal regiment to never allow, at least thus far, right, to be complacent?
Yeah, there was one thing that really changed my perspective, and it came from about 4 years ago. There was a guy who, I'm fascinated with guys that serve at the tier 1 level, especially in the military. So guys are like Delta or DevGru or 724th in the Air Force. And I was listening to a podcast, and I just fell in love with this dude. Is DJ Shipley from, he served at DevGru and Red Squadron, and he went on Sean Ryan, and it was one of the best podcasts I've ever heard. And he was saying that at one point, I was watching a video where he had just gotten to Red Squadron, so he'd just gotten to SEAL Team 6, and one of his troop chiefs, they were somewhere one night, and he looked at him and said, you should just be a pro. You should just be a pro no matter what. Like, if it's 2:30 in the morning, you can spring out of bed a pro. And what his basic perspective on that was that if the public was going to build you in a lab, and they were going to say, hey, what does this guy look like? How does he perform? What is he good at? How does he speak to people? How does he carry himself? They were going to describe it, and then they were going to walk you out on stage. Everyone that's sitting in that crowd is going to sit there and say, that's exactly what I thought that dude would look like. That's exactly how I thought that dude would perform.
Hell yeah.
And when he said that, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I felt like, this is what I'm called to do. And if I want to be good at this job, and I want to be put in the position to help people on their worst day, I need to approach it like being a pro. I need to be able to spring out of bed, and at any point in time, I can perform any task that's asked of me, hopefully, at a high level. And it should be at the level of a pro. It shouldn't be someone who takes it of like, well, he's decent at it, like he's 50-50. I want to be good at as many things as I can be. And hopefully, by doing that, it can help other folks, guys that I work with, but then also put people's minds at ease when they actually see us work on the fire ground, or they see us cut their mom out of a car, or someone's coding in their living room and they see us come in and we're boom, boom, boom. We know exactly what we're doing because we're performing at a pro level and we take it seriously. I think that builds a good reputation, and that's what we need to be working towards, especially as a whole or especially as a culture.
Dude, that's so good. So how do you balance grace, right? That idea of like understanding people are human and people make mistakes, and that holding the line accountability side. So how do you merge, or how do you balance those two? Because I think that's also, we want to have high standards. We also understand that the brand new person isn't going to be at that high standard. So, I mean, you've been in the job 2 years, so you're going to naturally become a leader to those people that are coming in behind you. So how do you balance those two between grace and accountability?
I think first and foremost, trying to lead by example. Like you said, I'm not a leader necessarily I don't have a leadership role necessarily in the department, but I try to do the basics really well, in the sense of leading by example. Of I'm usually the first one up and trying to act like a new guy. I don't skip my truck checks. I don't skip equipment checks. I don't try to cut corners in any way, shape, or form. And I think by doing that, first and foremost, it shows the young guys that, hey, so-and-so's taking this seriously, and we're not here to take shortcuts. So I think that if they have a good example to basically see and work with, that's going to lay a good foundation for them. But then if see them not taking after that, or not taking it as seriously as you are, I think that having a little bit of grace of saying like, hey, you don't know yet. So that warrants the conversation of, hey, we need to have an expectation conversation. Like, hey, you're a new guy, just so you know. I've had a few of these with new guys that have come into the station saying, hey, I'm not your captain, I'm not your lieutenant, but here's some unwritten rules of the firehouse. Like, here's some things you should do as a probie. And if you have the expectation conversation and then they willingly ignore it and they don't do those things, that's when accountability can come into play, because you've already covered all your bases. Like, hey, you set a good example. Maybe they didn't notice it. We had an expectation conversation. You should really do this. Now you're willingly ignoring it. This isn't cutting it. This is like, now we have an accountability conversation. So I think first and foremost, approaching it with some grace, like, hey, maybe a guy doesn't know. But then once you make it known and it's willingly ignored, that's when we need to say, hey, this isn't appropriate, and you need to be doing more to basically meet the standard.
Dude, that's so good. And we're going to talk about culture and leadership in a second after my next question here, but I'm going to disagree. You said you're not a leader in your department. I'm telling you right now, as a guy who the chief told me I was a leader because I'm a lieutenant, you're a leader. Guys like you lead probably more than you know. You guys are just leading from the back seat that faces the wrong way. So you are a leader. You're going exactly in the direction I think that God wants you to be, and this department and this career wants you to be. So, dude, you're working on the right stuff. And I'll ask you some more leadership stuff here in a second. But what is one area of EMS and fire that you feel like as a career, I'm not talking about at your department or anything like that, but as a career, you feel like we've lowered the bar, and then like what needs to be raised back up, and we need to be passionate as a fire service, as EMS, to drive people to meet that standard?
Physical performance. I think physical training has to be first and foremost. I think that when, even in EMS, we had a call probably a week or two ago when 3 grown men are calling the fire department for a lift assist, and the patient's 160 pounds. Like, that's absurd. That's insane to me. There's no way you're going to it makes any sense for you to get guys out of bed at 2 a.m. for something like that. When 3 grown men are standing in a bedroom and you can't lift a 160-pound patient up and put him back in bed, that's crazy to me. And I also think, even on the fire side too, I think that the physical side of things kind of drops. For the first year, at least in my department, you have to do 3 agility tests, one in the beginning, one at 6 months, and one at 12 months to get off probation. And then after that, you don't have to take another physical test for the rest of your career. That's insane to me. And you don't have to take a physical test for promotions. So you get guys that have been in the job like, 10, 14, 15 years, and then they're fat and out of shape, and then they pass a test to be a lieutenant or a captain, but they can't even make it through a bottle before they're out yard breathing, and they don't lead by example, and they don't perform at a high level across the board. And I think that lowering the standard on the physical side of things puts civilians at risk, and then also puts the guys that you're working with at risk. Because if I'm a physical liability and we're in a house and things are going haywire, the last thing I want to worry about is, hey, I hope the guy next to me can get me out. And the inverse of that, I never want to be someone who is in a house with someone and they're thinking, hey, if things go haywire, I worry if he can get me out. I want them to know that as soon as we cross the threshold, I have all confidence in the world with the dudes that are with me. And at the station I work now, especially, I have no reservations in crossing a threshold into the most haywire environment and having faith in those dudes. There's a lot of experience, and I think that they perform at a really high level. So I feel super lucky to be surrounded by a culture who wants to take the job seriously and has built a good reputation when it comes to the fire service, especially on our department.
Dude, that's so good. So switching roles to kind of leadership, right? I think we can probably both agree that leadership is not bugles on your collar, right? There's leadership on numerous different levels. So how do you model leadership without rank? How do you do it? Because again, like I said, coming from a lieutenant, I'm telling you right now, those guys in the back seat, you are leaders to the new guys coming in behind you. I think you already had a great point of having conversations with expectations. I mean, you put yourself out there in the social media world, just giving recommendations to a probie you've never been met before, of trying to help them be successful. So how do you model leadership without rank? And you might have already covered it. Just kind of recap it for me.
Yeah, just being a new guy, just never acting like you're not a new guy. I think that by doing the new guy things, you're gonna automatically probably build good reputation and a lot of respect, because by taking the initiative that you should already take as a probie and then just building that habit the rest of your career, you're just going to be automatically known as a guy who wants to work hard and wants to go the extra mile and help the dudes that you're working with. So in the mornings, like I said, I show up, I'm in shape, and my uniform looks put together. And then I never skip the truck checks. I never skip the cleaning. I never skip the daily duty. I don't skip my training. Whenever, the next morning or whatever, I'm usually the first one up. I'm the one putting dishes away. I'm the one that's offering to wash the dishes, at every meal. I'm making coffee in the morning. I'm taking the trash out. And I genuinely enjoy doing those things because, one, I get the perspective that, hey, I'm earning my seat at the table. Like every single day, like I'm earning being a part of this culture, being a part of this team, being a part of the department. My overall motivation isn't to earn respect from the dudes. I just really like serving them, and I like feeling that I'm a productive member of the team. So I think if you wanted to take the approach of, hey, how do I display leadership, or how do I be a leader, acting like a new guy, because new guys, they should never be complacent. They should always be looking for things to do, taking initiative, asking to train, and having some sort of a drive to want to be better consistently, day after day, shift after shift. And I think if you did that, and if everyone took that approach, you would automatically make everyone else around you better. Like a rising tide raises all boats. So if everyone did that, it's going to create more opportunities for people to grow, be better, and then just perform at a higher level, which is really what we're called to do.
Dude, that's so good. My next question was, how does servant leadership look like, or what does servant leadership look like in the firehouse? And I think you literally I think you laid it all out there. I think that's solid. Serving others. I love that you were like, I'm not trying to gain respect. I just like serving the crew that I work with. So I think that's awesome. If you could change one thing about the fire EMS. Go ahead, dude. Please do.
Just to piggyback off of servant leadership, there's a couple of things I want to just point out real quick, because I saw that question, and I think that there's a really good example. So the guy I was telling you about that was a lieutenant, now is a captain. If you wanted to be the epitome of servant leadership, I think it would be him. And there's a couple of things he does that I think are so awesome. And one, first and foremost, he leads by example. Like anything that you ask of him, like he can do it, and he can do it at a high level. And then not only can he do it, he can teach it. So anything that you have that you're confused about, you can go to him and he probably has an answer for it. One. And then two, one thing that I really like about him, especially on the servant leadership side of things, is if you're out there and you're mopping the floor, he's mopping the floor with the boys and he's a captain. Or when it comes to we're about to sit down and eat, he's the last one to grab his plate, and he will fight you tooth and nail to make sure that everyone else is sitting down as their food before he grabs his and sits down. He's huge on, he praises in public and criticizing in confidence. So if you did something great, he wants everyone to know it. But if there's something that warrants a conversation or some sort of accountability, he's really good at pulling you aside, not embarrassing you in front of everybody, and saying, hey, like this is something that we could do better, and we shouldn't do this moving forward. So I think those little things of, just putting the guys that are underneath your command or underneath your leadership first, and making sure that they're taken care of and they feel comfortable and they feel confident, but still holding the standard, is a perfect storm of making everyone feel important and then driving a culture that is positive, and it mitigates the amount of negativity that could take place.
Dude, I love that. That's so good. So my next question was like, what if you could change one thing about the fire and EMS culture currently, what would that be?
I think it would be praising in public and criticizing in confidence. I think that it wouldn't have to be necessarily one-on-one on the criticism side of things or the accountability. Even if it was, you and your crew sitting down saying, hey, we could do this better. And so, like, hey, you've done this a couple of times, but we're having these conversations and shifting the mindset so that we can grow and we can progress. It's not a conversation to embarrass people, which I think people get easily confused. I think if you take the mindset, especially in a job like this, that any criticism is to embarrass you, you're in the wrong line of work, because at the very end of the day, this is to render a higher level of care that other people need on the worst day that they can imagine. So if you shy away from criticism or shy away from accountability or growing, I really don't know if this is the best career for you, because you should want that criticism. You should want the pressure. You should want the tweaking and molding to make you better, especially in a profession like this.
Dude, that's so good. All right. I got 5 like rapid fire questions that I want you to answer. I'm going to say you got like 60 seconds to answer each one, because I want just like down dirty, quick as you can think them, and bang them out. And I don't have a timer. Right. I really don't care if this takes you longer than 60 seconds. It's just the challenge I'm going to lay out there.
I feel like 60 seconds is a long time. So
right? Yeah. It's like the world's worst interview.
No.
So here's number 1. What's the hardest part of the job?
Being away from my wife.
That's what I always say. I always tell people it's being away from my family.
Yeah, I think being away from the family, I can do like the blood and guts and crazy calls, but I think that the overall, small chipping away of just not being with your best friend, which for me is my wife, I think that probably is the hardest part for me.
Wait till you have kids. It gets even worse. I got 3 little kids, man. And like I said, that just brings a whole new level into the game.
Yeah. Well, we're about to have our first here at the beginning of May. So,
heck yeah. Dude, congrats.
Find out real quick.
Boy or girl?
Girl.
Oh man, get ready. That little girl is gonna change your life in a way. I had 2 little girls first, and then my little boy is everything I deserve as a father. So get ready for just a whole roller coaster. One time we'll jump on a FaceTime and I'll let you see my family, and you may not want to have a second one. Most misunderstood part of faith in the fire service. Oh, I think either your internet cut out or something just crashed. Hang on one second. Is your internet tweaking out on your side? Yep. It's rebooting.
Hey, can you?
Yep.
So
we got you.
All right, cool. Can you repeat that? I
Yep.
think you just cut out.
Absolutely, no worries. Most misunderstood part of faith in the fire service.
It makes you softer. I think that it makes you it can be utilized in a way to make you way more mentally tough and better at the job.
Dude,
Sure.
that's so good.
I think that it can make you way more prepared, and you can do a lot of good with a foundation of faith than you would think of it making you softer or not able to handle things. You being able to take the burden that the job can put on you and give it to something else, like my faith in Christ, and putting him in charge of carrying that burden because he already has willingly said he wants to do that and take that off our plate through grace and love and all the things that he offers us. You could be a vital piece to your department through faith. It can make you way more effective.
That's good. Dude, that's awesome. One daily habit that keeps you sharp.
My devotional. I think that I always do, for the past 4 years, I've done a 365-day devotional. And the first year, I think I did Billy Graham, who's probably the most famous pastor of all time. The second year, I think in 23, I did Tim Tebow's Mission Possible. It's 365 days. Last year, I did Craig Groeschel. He's a pastor based out of Oklahoma. Dude is epic. He's also like jacked for a 50-year-old guy. But just love him as a pastor, super aggressive, super black and white, and he's fantastic. And then this year, I'm doing Tony Dungy. He was a head coach for the Indianapolis Colts for a long time, won a Super Bowl. He was Peyton Manning's head coach, I think, the entirety of his career. And it's really nice because you have an opportunity every single day. Like I said, there's 365 devotions in this one book, and it holds you accountable because you know that if you missed a day or two, like, hey, I got 2 more to catch up on today. And by doing that every morning, it just lays the foundation for my approach, and it makes taking some time to be with God to start my day as an option off the table. I'm able to knock that out, kind of center myself, and then face the day head on from a good starting point.
Dude, heck yeah, that's awesome. One book, podcast, or person who has influenced you. Only one.
Man. I'm going to go with DJ Shipley, Sean Ryan, on the Sean Ryan show. I think he's episode like 15. But I would highly recommend DJ Shipley. That dude he changed my perspective on a lot of things. But on the performance side of things and culture and approach and performing at a high level, that dude's huge.
Sweet. And I threw this one in. I don't actually know how old you are, but advice to your 21-year-old rookie self. If you're like 22 right now, then that's fine. But just basically, what's your advice to your rookie self?
Yeah. Well, I'm 28. I feel like
see,
I
look
have
at
a
that.
baby
Perfect.
face.
Yeah, you do. Good Lord. You look like you just graduated high school.
No, I know. It's, part of me is like embarrassed by that, but another part of me thinks that I hope I hold on to that for a little while. I would say, can you repeat the question one more time? Because I just want to make sure I answer this correctly.
Yep. Advice. Now that we know how old you are, advice to your 21-year-old rookie self.
Don't seek validation, seek growth, in the sense of, like growing up naturally, I was a very insecure person, a very insecure dude. So I naturally gravitated towards the people that were popular, and I would just do whatever I could to fit into that circle. Because I saw that they were getting some sort of attention and some sort of love or approval. And naturally, I gravitated towards those people, especially in high school and college. But if I had to go back and shift it, I would say I would grab myself, pull them aside, and tell them, stop seeking validation from the dudes who are getting attention and try to seek validation and growth from the dudes who you want to be like. So find the person who everyone looks at and says, like, dude, that guy's awesome. Like, he's unwavering on his beliefs, he's unwavering on his morals and the way that he carries himself, and surround yourself with people like that, because they're going to help you grow and they're automatically pushing you towards the end state that you want to be. So I think one helps you get validated in the moment, but the other one helps you actually fulfill potential that you believe you have and is way more sustainable than the former. So I would say find the dudes that you want to be like long term, not who you want to be like in the moment. And that would shift my perspective 100%. And I think it would have helped me sidestep a bunch of landmines.
Dude, that's so good. Well, those are my 5 questions. Lastly, you talked about it in the beginning, but I want, how do people connect with you, engage with you, see what you're putting out, just like follow you, throw all that out here. We'll make sure we link stuff in the show notes and things like that so they can click on links. But how do they reach out to you, connect with you, and I don't know, change their careers with you?
Yeah. TikTok is the only platform that I am on at this moment. It's at Zach Willhide. It's ZACWILLHIDE. You can shoot me a DM. You can comment on the videos. Most of the time, people comment on the video if they have a question, and I will reply comment with a video and try to break down whatever question that they do have or topic that they're confused with. But first and foremost, just shoot me a DM. And I reply to like every DM. I'm not someone that really snubs you unless you ask like a really ridiculous conversation or a really ridiculous question. Probably not going to answer. But I mean, I've had things in my mind like, man, it's a dumb question. But then I try to take the perspective of, hey, dude, these guys probably don't know, or these guys and girls probably are new to whatever topic that they're curious about. So that's the best way to do it. TikTok for sure.
Cool. All right, man. Well, I can't thank you enough. This has been, I had a great time. Super fun. Thanks for hanging out with me. I look forward to, I'm sure our paths are going to continue to cross. So I'm stoked for any collabs we do moving forward. And man, I just can't thank you enough for giving me a little bit of time out of your busy week to just kind of sit down and chat. So I greatly appreciate it.
I really appreciate the opportunity. This has been an awesome experience for me. And I think that being able to collab with folks like yourself, it changes my mindset also. It changes my approach. And I think that that's the overall goal here is I just want to grow, especially from the mindset side of things. So I really appreciate you taking the time to give me a little piece of your platform and diving into those topics. And I just feel so blessed. And I hope that other people can have a little bit or gain a little bit of good out of our conversation. And I hope it helps someone that needs it.
Heck yeah, man. I greatly appreciate you. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
If you found value in this episode, please take a moment to rate the podcast, leave a review, and share it with someone on your crew. It helps us continue bringing real education and real conversation to the EMS community. Remember, if you can't save a life, change a life.